We have one member absent. Mr. Siebenaller is on a business trip. He will not be with us this evening. All other members are present and accounted for. Would you please all stand, face the flag if you're so inclined. Remove any headgear as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we approve the agenda, under item 1, the 15-16 end-of-year eval for the superintendent, I would like to move that from item 1 to item 17. Insomuch as we don't know the length of the evaluation where we will be in closed session, it's best to put it at the end of the agenda. We will be evaluating the superintendent in a closed session at that time, and then subsequently at the following meeting, we will be discussing that evaluation. So we move that down to item 17. Any other additions or amendments to the agenda?
None tonight.
If not, I look for a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Kurt,
I'll second.
second by Josh. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Scheduled presenters, we're going to look at a property update from Superintendent Geese, and I believe you have a web map in front of you. Beth?
I do. Mike, I don't have a screen though.
There it is.
Okay. What we are going to be looking at tonight is a situation where, if you know where Chewinkas live, it's this section right here. I'm going to point it out. As you're looking over at the elementary, it's this line here and down. Here's Highway 19. Muriel has decided to put her house on the market. They are always been remarkable to the school and always wanted to kind of give us first dibs on something like this. So when we had a meeting, they wanted to give us the opportunity to look at this property. There was a time when we wanted to really protect that area to make sure that no developments were made and things like that. With some of the changes that have happened around 19, and there will be an intersection now at Hardwood Way, if you've been following City Council at all, a lot of conversation, and that'll be down here past the elementary. We've always looked at another route to get into the elementary school. As Derek can attest, traffic is really, really hard when it's just that one entrance and one exit. But in this situation, this property doesn't really help us. I asked about what the price range would be. There's a house on the market across the street at $279. This house will obviously be more than that. There's a lot of options. I'm just bringing it to, they'd like to go ahead and get it on the market. You'll see some white lines around the property. Can everyone see that on their maps? When the properties across the street had to redo their city water and sewer, these two houses right here, the Husbys and the Chewinkas, did not have to go ahead and do that. So if this person was to buy this property, they would have to somehow connect to that. So it's some work there as well. We're just bringing it to you tonight as an opportunity. If we're interested in buying some residential property that connects to our school. I have had this area out here zoned when we talked about having fields in the front. I'll move that over a little bit. When we talked about this, the grade is so severe that it would be extremely expensive to redo that field in front of the high school. The grade in this area is actually deeper. So to fill this in, if you go from the elementary parking lot over here into this lot, it's significant. And I think most of you have driven by there enough to know that. So even if we wanted to use it for property, I don't know if it's ideal for athletic fields or anything else we may be looking at. But I told the realtors that I would bring it to you just to present ideas. Board chairman and I have met. There are some options maybe for rentals and things like that. it really is up to you. We are still sitting with Wasedo as a property as well, so, I don't know how much property we want to be owning if we're not going to do anything with it, but there's sure some great ideas, and it is a great location for us. Just the elevation is not ideal for what we need.
How about for just on that, I guess it'd be on the southern part of that property, you've been talking about parking for the elementary and trying to figure out some way of, making that a little bit more safe.
You mean
Is that an option?
right along this here? That,
Just to the left on that, is that, I'm just trying to figure out what that property looks like, but
this is a pretty big slope here. If you were to come out of the elementary parking lot, this area right here is sloped into this property.
Okay,
This has been raised up to make it, the elevation flat.
sure. I was just wondering, could you go down an elevation for parking and then you could do something constructive with in front of the school, how it wasn't very safe with the way the buses were going in and out with parents and stuff. I mean,
Right.
just wondering if that ever.
Oh, I think that, we've talked about that every year. Ultimately, if you were to look at expense-wise, though, even the property at, say $300,000, a road, a nice road coming in from Hardway, would actually be less, and we'd be using our own property. We have an easement off there. There'll be a nice intersection down there. I'd like to wait to see when that gets done, what that's going to look like. We don't want to have a ton of traffic, going past St. Ansgar's as well, but yeah, I think Derek would second the idea of having an in and an out. I just don't know if this is exactly the way to do it. Just to keep in mind, too, you can't have a two-way here joining onto 19. This is a highway, not a road, so we run into limitations that way as well.
So the reason for bringing it to our attention is just the feasibility of whether or not it fits into us.
Yeah, there was a time, even 10 years ago, this was really concerned, when Cannon Falls was building a lot, they were kind of worried that this area would be taken over by many houses. Now that's happened across the street, which I think is great for our community. I like the idea of building. I don't think now with 19 as busy as it is, we don't have to worry about that happening right there. But I just, anytime a property opens up and it borders you, it's at least worth looking at.
So you're not making any recommendations? You know what's going on the market? You're just going to keep us up to date on its
I am.
progress?
If we wanted to move on it, one, finding the funds to do that we'd have to get extremely creative. At least we found out before the new year has started, but this would be really difficult to find that kind of funding. The state will help us out more next year, not so much this year. This wasn't a financial year, so it would be really hard to find that unless we were to get lucky enough to sell Wastedo, but now you're with another property as well. I just don't know if this fits our long-term 10-year, facility plan. We're really not in the market to do real estate or housing or anything, but to have that and hold on to it might be worth it down the road. I just, at this time, don't know.
The feasibility of having that connection with both of our campuses is really kind of appealing.
Mm-hmm.
But at the
Yeah,
same
and
time,
if,
the
if
cost-
down the road this was to open up too, now you're talking about, an area that maybe you could build up and have, our athletic fields are probably our biggest lacking compared to other schools in the HVL. But again, with the grade, it would take some work to make that right, so. I don't think I'm not asking for any decision. I certainly just want you to be aware of it. It will be going on the market soon. We'll see kind of what happens with that. We can kind of follow it along as well. I just want to thank them so much. I mean, Chewinkas have been nothing but kind to our district, and for them to think of us first and make sure that we knew this prior to it going on the market, I just think shows their dedication to our school. So thank you to Muriel for thinking about us.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Beth. Okay, moving down, reports and communication. Miranda is not with us this evening. So, any board committee reports? Nothing at all? Summertime, I can tell. Public input. Due to data privacy concerns, a speaker may not address criticism toward an individual employee of the district during public input. Individual complaints should be handled privately with our district administrators and/or the SOUP. Comments from visitors must be informational in nature and not to exceed 3 to 5 minutes per issue. The board cannot engage in discussion or debate in those 3 to 5 minutes, but will take the information and find appropriate answers. As part of board protocol, it is unacceptable for any speaker to slander or engage in character assassination at a public board meeting. Having said that, does anyone wish to address the board for any issues relevant to school? Okay, moving on. Consideration to approve the finance report.
I do.
Very brief finance report. As you'll see towards the end, we've got the final revised fiscal year 16 budget. And in putting together now the FY17 cash flow, I want to make sure that I'm not rushing to give you out poor information, but you have good information. So this is just a real brief summary of where we're at right now. This only goes through the end of June, which is a couple days away here. And then next time when we have our meeting, you'll see the full cash flow again presented to you. A couple things to note here, quite a large amount of cash on hand in the merchant's checking account, and that is as a result of the first half of property taxes coming in and the levy portion, and that helped when we look at our revised budget for 16, some of the cash flow, the revenue side. The TD Ameritrade accounts, those are the two sales of the bonds for the long-term facility maintenance project going on at the school currently. Currently, you'll see about a little under $8 million or roughly in the account there. I mean, we spent about $3+ million so far on the project. Just kind of give you kind of a heads up financially where we're at with what's going on. For being around the site, you can know that things are moving along and progressing at a pretty good pace right now. And when those things happen, payment applications start coming in and the money starts going out. So as far as the first kind of layout of the cash flow and what would be going out with those projects for UNESCO, we've been pretty close to on target, maybe slightly behind, but that will all catch up as they get going and start requesting the payment at funds. So of this $11+ million that you'll see at the end of June, really as far as cash-wise, we're sitting in a pretty good spot and not having to for sure borrow any cash. And again, once we have our next meeting and you have the full cash flow out in front of you, we'll see that we're in a pretty decent shape right now, cash flow-wise. Again, very brief portion of it, but if you have any questions, I can do my best to answer what you have.
Any questions, board? If not, I would look for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Jerry on the motion,
I'll second.
seconded by Kurt. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That is carried. Consent agenda. Items under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted in one motion. In the event a board member wants to discuss any single item, it can be removed from the consent agenda for separate action. In front of you have all the attachments, including attendance report, lunch report, gift report, personal items, and monthly bills.
I just want to note that the attendance report, someone had emailed about numbers prior. Remember not to look too much into our kindergarten numbers. As Derek can tell you, it always changes. We've got a few kindergartners that go to St. Paul's schools or other organizations, so it isn't always a true sign of what your incoming first grade is going to be, so just keep that in mind.
Okay. Motion by Jerry,
I'll second.
seconded by Brenda. Other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're carried. Old business, we have none. New business, jumping down to item 2, consideration to approve a Family Medical Leave Act request from August 29 to September 19.
This is for Eileen Nelson. She works at the elementary school. I would recommend approval.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Josh made the motion,
I'll second.
seconded by Brenda. Other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Consideration to approve a resignation, item 3.
This is for Jenny Johnson, a current 5th grade teacher. We wish her well in her endeavors. She lives in Lakeville and took a position in Lakeville. Just easier when you've got a little one for transportation and all those types of things. So we wish her well and thank her for her service.
I'll make a motion to approve the resignation.
Motion by Kurt,
I'll second.
seconded by Jerry. Other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That is carried. Consideration to hire a 1.0 elementary teacher.
Derek, would you mind talking about Katie?
Yeah, so Katie Zuzik comes to us from, actually was doing a long-term sub job last year for a full year in Farmington. Has experience beyond that as well, but very excited and I think will be a good fit.
Motion by Josh. Second? Kurt? Other discussion? Just for we used to have 100 applicants for a job, and you read everything in the paper saying the numbers are dwindling for educators. What did you have for this job?
Right around 35, I believe, at the end.
Mhm.
Yeah. Lower, probably the lowest I've ever had. Which is
Interesting.
nice because it's less reading, but you know, we'd always like to have the bigger pool to choose from.
Yep.
I think Tim was probably the same way.
Okay, anything else? All in favor of the approval of the new elementary teacher, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Consideration to hire a director of instructional technology.
Well, this one is actually pretty exciting. It's been a long process. You remember us talking about this in January, and then February surveying the staff, and then meeting with administration, and lots of conversations about this. And we've decided to get away from coordinator of technology. We really want to be moving forward and progressive, and we've decided to do a director of instructional technology. Because when we surveyed our staff, and I think some of the things you've seen, our teachers want to use technology, but don't have anyone to teach them how to do it. So we posted this position. This is a new master's that you can get at several universities in the state of Minnesota. We actually had some really great candidates. Actually, I was kind of surprised. All of the admin team, support tech, we're all on the interview panel, and even Rob Siebenaller represented us on the board. And at the end of the day, we did select Amy Dombeck. You know that name because she's worked here for a very, very long time. Extremely dedicated to this district, and went back and got another master's degree in Director of Instructional Technology. I'm really excited to see where this plan can go. I've already talked to her about presenting and giving you a mini update the first board meeting of every month, because I think what's lacking is the connection of you guys knowing what's going on. And so we're gonna work really hard on that. But congratulations to Amy. This is just, I think, a dream come true for her, and really a good fit for our district. So I would recommend hiring Amy Dombeck.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll
Motion.
second.
Motion by Brenda, seconded by Kurt. Other discussion?
I just got a question. Do we have a lot of people apply for that position too?
We did. I think at the end of the day, I had 10. We interviewed 5. You know, and I think a few others would have been qualified. I wasn't feeling what we needed. They leaned more towards the tech coordinator position. I think this is going to be a really good fit.
Just kind of wondering what the demand is for a position like that too.
Yeah. It's the demand for this type of thing is I'm glad we're getting the position before some of the other schools do. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have a motion and second on the floor. All in favor of the hire of Amy as our new Director of Instructional Tech, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Consideration to hire a 1.0 secondary teacher for social studies and online supervision.
Well, with Amy accepting this position, it creates an opening. And Tim, if you wouldn't mind filling us in on Stephen.
Sure. I was maybe different than Derek. I had 41 applicants for the social studies position, and I was extremely pleased with that. We interviewed 4 applicants, and they were all great. And we chose Stephen Strauss, who will come to us from Sabika. He's been a teacher and a coach there for the last 5 years.
The name like Strauss, that has some local flavor to it more.
He's got
Lots.
connections to some of our staff. So, yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Jerry,
I'll second it.
seconded by Brenda. Other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Consideration to hire a 1.0 science teacher.
If you remember correctly, last meeting you approved Matt Drucker. You did that. He's taking a position in Rochester, so Tim, why don't you tell us about Alex Jones?
Not quite as many applicants for that position, but Alex Jones is a former civil engineer who went back to get his teaching license, so this will be his first teaching job. Really excited about him. He's got some great ideas, and he and I really clicked as far as the direction that we want, all of our staff to go. So he's talking a lot about doing a lot of hands-on work with kids and having kids doing things as opposed to sitting and listening. So he and I met earlier. I guess we met at the end of last week. I kind of gave him as much of a tour of the building as I could in construction.
With a hard helmet on?
Yeah, it's kind of hard for him to envision what his classroom's going to look like when it's all torn up. So, but no, I'm excited about having Alex on board with us.
I'll make a motion to hire.
Josh made the motion. That was close. Second?
I'll second.
Kurt on the second. Other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Consideration to approve the fall assistant coaches.
We're gonna turn this over to Jake, and Jake, why don't you actually come up to the microphone, but on your notes, I'd like you to write down, under boys soccer, it'll be 2 paid positions, 1 volunteer. Girls soccer, 2 paid, 1 volunteer. Football is 5 paid, 6 volunteer. Volleyball is 3 paid, 3 volunteer. And tennis is 1 paid, 1 volunteer.
And one note, 2 notes actually on there, like football, for example, they'll split some salaries, so there's still 5 paid positions, but salaries will be split. Tennis might do that, I can't remember if they're planning on doing that. And then also for football and volleyball, just a reminder that the C squad coach is fundraised, paid for. That was a cut a few years ago.
Do our volunteers run through exactly the same process as our paid staff?
Yep.
Background checks and everything that goes with it?
Yes, everybody on this list should be, I believe there's one coach on here who hasn't done her background check yet, but she's a teacher, so we just got to get it from her anyways, at a different school district. But otherwise, everybody should have their background checks completed already.
Do you have any concerns about, like the number of football coaches? That seems like a lot.
It seems like a lot, and I know that that's come up in past conversations, but, even though numbers are down in football, it takes a lot of people to coach a football team. And this is 7 through 12, so there's probably won't have the numbers for a JV and a C squad. We'll probably have a B squad and then 2 junior high teams. Coach Hosted really likes to have at least 2 people at junior high, which I agree with them because, 20 kids with football, even if it's just 20, which basketball is manageable sometimes, or baseball could be manageable, but football gets kind of hard, especially when there's the defense out there and guys on the sideline who are just playing offense. So at least 4 of those are probably junior high coaches.
Jake, some of the funding for, like, say, football comes from the booster clubs?
Booster club, you're right, yes. They'll split some salaries, and then the booster club will typically, I have not received that from them yet, but typically they have made some donations for coaches. Yep.
I can't remember, how does that decide, how that?
We would have to accept the donation first, and before the season starts, they'd have to write us that check. You guys would approve it, and if you don't approve it, then they wouldn't have that salary.
Is there a certain amount that they go out and say, this is what we're asking all the coaches to receive, and then they go to the booster club and ask for the funds? Is that how that?
Correct, yeah. And also tennis was a reduction last year. That used to be 2 paid assistants. We're down to just 1 paid assistant on that position too.
Any other questions for Jake?
I just got one more, and that,
Sure.
how do they determine what the coaches do get paid, the assistant coaches? How's that determined?
According to Schedule C. So, yep. Yep.
I was really surprised by the new hires. They've all come in, and all of them have indicated they want to coach
Yeah.
something. I was really, really
Yes.
pleasantly surprised by that.
In fact, Steven Strauss, it sounds like he would like to. I talked to him today about maybe doing some fall coaching. I don't think he did at Sabika, but I mentioned it to him and I passed it on to Coach Hofstad as well, that he's got some coaching experience. So there could be another name on here eventually too. So
Okay, look for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Kurt,
I'll second.
seconded by Jerry. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That's carried. Excuse me. Vote was 4-0 with Josh Banks abstaining. Okay. Consideration to approve the 16-18 CE office support staff contract.
So this is actually for Molly Strauss, who has worked with me the last few years in community ed. As part of the filling the cashier position that's with the retirement this year, Molly's going to go from 3 days a week community ed to 5 days a week community ed and activities assistant. So she's going to 5 days a week. Her salary or her hourly wage would be $17.02, which is exactly what the secretaries are at. But it is a somewhat new position. We're adding 2 days a week for Molly Strauss to help fill the retirement.
Questions?
She won't fall into the secretary's schedule then?
She's not on that contract, no. She never has been. But her salary is the exact same as what they're making, yeah. Not, other than the hourly wage, I should say, really nothing else is based off of what the secretary contract is.
Okay, motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Jerry made that motion. Second?
I'll second.
Josh on the second. Any other conversation, discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That is carried. Consideration to approve the 16-18, 16-17 middle school, high school handbook. Who would like to speak to that? Tim, please.
Hopefully you all got copies of that. There were some pretty substantial changes that I made. The most of those are additions. There wasn't a whole lot of changing of things, but there were a few things here and there, just trying to clarify a few things for middle school students and high school students specifically. Probably the biggest change was as a staff, we decided to take a look at our academic honesty policy, and we did make some changes to that, just ones that made that I thought made some sense. So, for example, our policy did read that on the first offense, students received a 0 for that assignment. The second offense, students received a 0 or an F grade for the quarter, and then the third offense was an F grade for the semester. Really, the second and third offense were the same. As soon as you get an F for a quarter, you basically are not going to be able to pass for the semester. So we made some changes based on some things that we've been doing the last year or so, especially with the first offense, as far as giving staff the discretion with what they would like to do with that. For example, a lot of our staff are having students redo an assignment or redo a different assignment if they're caught cheating as a first offense. So that's probably the biggest thing. Again, there were quite a few things that were added. This spring, I made an effort to try to bring our handbook kind of up to the current age and added some things in there about technology that are probably redundant given our acceptable use policies and things like that, but it's nice to have in one place. So if you had did anybody have any specific questions about anything that is in there in red or crossed out or marked out?
How are we doing with the use of cell phones in these one-on-ones now in the class?
Are you asking my personal opinion, or are you want the party line on that? Because
Is it being regulated?
well, it's been difficult to regulate. When cell phones got to the point where you get a free one just for adding a line, and basically we see that as a big birthday present for sixth grade kids, and then pretty much I'd say probably 80 or 90% of our students have cell phones in the rest of middle school and high school. It's a terribly difficult thing to regulate. So what I've talked with staff mostly about is how do you want to handle that? Do you want it to be a big deal offense, or do you want this to be kind of a, let's use it as a teaching opportunity to teach kids to use technology appropriately? And that's been more of what we've done. So students can use their personal devices in between classes and at lunch. And the rest of the time they're supposed to be at a minimum ringers off and put away. There are some staff that are having kids use those devices in class, especially since we phased in our one-to-one program. Not every kid had access to their own computer, and a lot of teachers were having kids use cell phones as devices. So it's an ongoing issue. It's something that we struggle with, but we talk with staff. We have lots of discussions with staff about that and how we handle those things in class. Yeah.
Other questions? I would look for a motion to approve the handbook.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Jerry,
I'll second.
seconded by Kurt. Other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 11, consideration to adjust the 15-16 from 174 to 172.
Yeah, this is, something we do every single year on February 2nd. And on March 24th, I did have to call snow days. So we have to adjust our days with the state. Nothing needs to be made up. When it's only 2 days, we build those in. So we're good to go. Just you have to adjust those days.
Procedural thing. Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Brenda,
I'll second.
seconded by Kurt. Other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Consideration to approve the membership into the C organization.
Basically, every school our size either belongs to C, which stands for Schools in Equity and Education, or the MREA group. They're both supportive of rural equality and equity for our students. It is vital that we are a member of one of those groups. We've always belonged to C, and I think it's a really great relationship. Brad Lindell is a Cannon Falls grad, so he often meets with me and gives me a lot of updates. I'm also on the legislative committee, so this organization has been an extremely good resource for our school.
Look
I'll
for
make a motion to approve.
motion by
Second.
Jerry, seconded by Brenda. Other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried. Consideration to approve the 8th grade tablet lease agreement.
This is not anything new. It's not anything you haven't thought you approved. We did not have that lease agreement in last month's board packet, and so you didn't officially approve it. And so we just thought it would be wise to make sure that we've got the documentation that you approved all of them. So again, it was just something that wasn't in there. We had all the other quotes in there except this one. So my recommendation would be to go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Motion by Kurt, seconded by Josh. Other discussion?
Is that for the Chrome?
The 8th grade, you got the Chrome ones last time.
The 8th grade is Chromebooks also.
Yeah, okay. And I think that's where the confusion came. We stuck them in there, but I'm not sure how the 8th grade didn't get it. Aren't you the one that caught it, Tim?
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know how it didn't get on there.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, we have a motion and second on the floor. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Consideration to approve the final revised 15-16 budget.
Go ahead and have Josh go through this. Both of us can answer questions on it, but.
Page
we'll have
26.
Run through, yep.
Okay.
So I know what you've got there, just the basic nuts and bolts, all the way down to just the summary by fund. And since we've gone through this with revision just a couple months ago, I won't spend a whole lot of time on it, other than when we received the levy payments for the first half, it helped significantly change numbers in the revenue. When we revised the budget in March, we looked like we'd be spending down the general fund about $400,000. and now it looks more in the $200,000 ballpark. So more on the course where we started out the year with the original fiscal year 16 budget. We look at spending down about $155,000, and right now it'd be about $225,000. Some of the increases that happened in the general fund from the original budget would be the addition of an ADSYS teacher, which will get granted back to us, but it's a pay now, receive funds the previous or the next year. So we get those funds back now in fiscal year 17, and that'll help offset the budget for 17. But in 16, we had to pay it up front. We added a bus, some bus surveillance equipment as well. So there's some additions that were to that original budget that help increase the expenditures, but there's a nice offset now with the referendum being approved and receiving that first half of the levy payment. We've come into a situation where now expected audit total for our fund balance for the general fund at the end of the fiscal year will be a little over $1 million, and that's kind of a ballpark where it's not that 8-12%, 16% that maybe we'd like to have as an audit, but where we're pretty comfortable working in, and we have been for the last several years. So that kind of in a nutshell kind of explains the general fund. Food service, we increased some expenditures to get some equipment in the food service area from the original budget, and that's why you'll see a spend down of about $30,000. It still gives food service at the end of the fiscal year a nice fund balance, nothing that's excessive, something that gives Wendy some flexibility if she needs to get some equipment. Certainly not any big ticket items. You know, a dishwasher, for as simple as it may seem in a household, can run $75,000, $100,000 for a commercial. Community ed, you know, we're spending down that, and a lot of that is based on kind of correcting some salary things, but you'll see there that there's a nice fund balance there, and it's a good idea to keep in mind that if there's an excessive fund balance in community ed, that the state will pull some of those funds back. So the spend down there is appropriate, and it's something that we'll keep an eye on as we go forward to make sure that it doesn't go spend down too far. Construction, the project wasn't approved at the beginning of fiscal year 16. Once that got approved, we built the budget for it. We received the revenue. We received all $11.5 million of funding for that project, but we don't spend all of it in fiscal year 16. The bulk will be spent in fiscal year 17 as we go. So that's why you see the difference of revenue versus expenditures. We'll have a fund balance there, and ideally the project gets all complete in fiscal year 17, and we'll be able to wipe out the construction fund at the end of fiscal year 17. Debt service, there's an increase there in revenue, and that's tied to levy. As we're going to have more debt service payments on these new bonds, there's an increase there. So when we received our levy payment for the first half, that increased the amount of revenue in the debt service. The expenditures dipped down just a little bit, and that's because of a transfer from the construction fund to cover some debt, and it's just an accounting thing, but you'll see that's the explanation for it. Trust and agencies, our scholarship, and that's just to kind of tie out to where we're at really in what actually happened with expenditures going out and the revenues coming in. And then the last two funds, in real brief, are the OPEB trust and the OPEB debt service, and that's to help pay for other post-employment benefits. And the idea with that is that in 10 years, when the bond is paid up, that will be at zero as well. So in a nutshell, that's just kind of the basic summary. If you need to see or want to see the detail behind all of it, I'm certainly willing to, you want to stop in my office or a phone call if you have other questions, I can certainly ask or answer what you have.
So the OPEB trust, we levied on a 10-year basis for our retired employees' benefits that were due them.
Yeah, it's so it's a $1 million bond. The payoff on it is 10 years, and we just kind of had through Finance Committee as the general policy on that is to, since we're going to be paying on it for 10 years, we might as well try to get it to last 10 years. We can certainly hold off on funds and keep them when needed. It helps offset some of the liability we have to pay for other post-employment benefits. When you go through an actuarial study, the kind of implicit and subsidized benefit of those is far exceeding what we draw out of it each year, but this just helps reduce some of that cost to the district.
Where are we in the 10-year plan?
About midway through it, yeah. You know, based on where we're at with balance, we're going to have about 4 years left of it, yeah.
I thought we were getting closer to the end of that. And then we'll have to make a value judgment on whether we re-levy?
Yeah, it would have to be that, you know, we can do a levy if we get sunset clauses in contracts, and that'd be a real difficult bargaining thing to get. That'd be something that the district would have to decide if we wanted to go out for a levy specifically for that, and it might be a tough sell. It's hard to tell when that comes.
Yeah.
And we've met with Jeff Seeley on this topic, and he's got some ideas too that we can certainly look at down the road as well. I think he's got good ideas.
Yeah, yep, for sure.
Any other questions for Mr. Davison? If not, I'd look for a motion to approve the final revised.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Kurt, seconded by Jerry. Other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Josh. Consideration to approve a resignation.
This one I don't know if I like or not, but I'll let Josh Banks take this one.
Yes, that is me, resigning from the board. I was hired as the girls' head varsity soccer coach, and kind of made a decision of which one I not preferred. I don't know what other word I can use, but, so, this will be my last meeting on the school board. So I just want to say thank you for teaching me the ropes, and learned a lot. And anybody got any questions out there about the school board, run and sit on it.
Yeah, good point.
So, thank you very much.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you for your time on here, Josh. Okay, I would look for a motion to approve this. And what date are we looking at, excuse me, effective this evening?
Yeah, July 1.
So I'd look for a motion to approve the resignation of Josh Banks effective July 1.
Sorry.
Oh, can't get a motion, sorry.
With regrets, I'll make a motion.
Motion was made by Brenda and seconded by Kurt. See that, Banks? You're causing turmoil. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thanks again, Josh. Consideration to approve the resolution establishing dates for filing affidavits of candidacy.
This is really standard procedure. Lori is on top of every step you need to do all the way until November. So we're gonna have a school board election come fall, and so this is just part of that. So Brenda, we'll need you to do a resolution on this one, last page.
Okay, let's vote for the resolution establishing dates for filing affidavits of candidacy. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent District, School Number 252, State of Minnesota as follows. The period for filing affidavits of candidacy for the office of School Board Member of Independent School District Number 252 shall begin on August 2nd, 2016, and shall close on August 16, 2016. An affidavit of candidacy must be filed in the office of the school district clerk, and the $2 filing fee paid prior to 5:00 p.m. on August 16, 2016. The affidavit of candidacy must state whether the person is filing to fill a 4-year term or is filing to fill the vacancy and term expiring January 7th, 2019.
So just to make that clear, someone could run for Josh's position. He still has 2 years remaining on his. So that's all we need, Brenda.
Okay. Take a vote on that. Kurt?
I'm just a question here. This is just for the upcoming election for anybody in general, right? Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
We better make
yes.
a motion. No, wait.
Wait.
Let's make a
Oh, we
motion.
need a motion.
Yep.
Motion a second to
I'll make a motion to approve.
Jerry, seconded by Josh. Okay.
Now we have to vote on it.
Roll call.
Roll call is your turn.
All right, so Kurt,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Brenda, yes. Josh?
Yes.
Okay. That motion carries in a 5-0 vote. So again, effective, or filing opens up August 2, closes August 16th. There are 3 positions open for the 4-year term, 1 position open for the 2-year term. Okay? All right. At this time, we're going to go into a closed session as we do our semi-annual evaluation of the superintendent. And the results of that evaluation will come at our next board meeting, but this gives us an opportunity to individually meet with the superintendent, And I purposely put it on the back because I'm not sure how long it'll last. Usually it doesn't take too much time, but at the same time, it allows folks to, just understand that that will be the last item on our agenda before we close. So those of you who wish to stay and listen to the complete board agenda, you're certainly welcome. But at this point in time, I would look for a motion to close this session and go into public or private session.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Kurt. Second
I'll second.
by Josh. All in favor of closing a present meeting, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are temporarily adjourned. Now, let's find